All right. Anyways, we are going to get started. Stephen Stathis is here. He's the host of the BGcast podcast. Give it up.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining me tonight. Instead of a BGcast live podcast, we have a BGcast live talk occurring here. I have been to Liberty on the Rocks a few times myself. I love it here. I love seeing a room of people who are actually taking initiative and actually working towards solutions to making this country a better place. My podcast, we kind of cover it all. We talk about politics. We talk about conspiracies. We even dive into the woo. We're very well-versed, and we go into a lot of different places. But, speaking in this room tonight, one of the things I want to say to everybody here real quick is, we have a lot of leaders doing great things here. So the one thing I will just ask of all of you before I start is just hear what I have to say. I'm trying to bring a unique perspective. I'm trying to bring a unique approach to what we're dealing with right now in this situation with our country. And, some of the things I might say might be a little unorthodox, but just hear me out on what I have to say. And I guarantee you, hopefully I can open your mind a little bit and we can work towards a more positive direction, and we can get more feet on the ground, and we can get more people involved in everything that's going on today. So a little bit about myself. I am part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network. You guys know Charlie Robinson. He has a podcast on our network called Day Zero. Corey Hughes, who spoke in this room himself, actually is on our network. He's our producer as well. And guys, I've been in this for a little bit. I won't bore you too long or give you a TLDR, but I woke up at a very young age to everything going on. It was 2008. I was 20 years old. And, it was funny because one of the things that spurred me towards this was, I was like, man, we're in this recession right now. And I'm like, man, why is our financial system always so screwed up? Why does the economy always seem like there's an issue with it? And then after doing some research and diving in, it was kind of like a huge awakening for me to see what was actually going on here when it comes to the corruption, when it comes to all of the lying, and when it comes to a lot of the sleight of hands that we receive nowadays, especially from our political system. And, it was a trifecta for me because not only did I learn about our government, I learned about our food as well. That is something else I'm passionate about. Our food is definitely poisoned. There's a lot of crap in it. Luckily, it looks like we're on the way out of that. We'll have to take a look. Nonetheless, I've been a part of this community ever since then. It was, very passive at first. I kind of just did my research. I kind of just took a look at things. And then, I decided to put my foot forward in 2020 with my show, BGcast. And the rest is history after that. And here I am here tonight, guys. So thank you and welcome, and thanks for having me here. So why I called this the path to victory? Well, right now we're doing great things. We're moving forward. But at least in my eyes, after seeing the scope of this community for 17 years now, I think there's some things maybe we could potentially try to adjust with our perspective on how we approach things. And, I'm trying to look for a more solution-based mindset as well. That's something I want to promote because right now I feel like a lot of us get stuck in talking about the problems, right? We're all very aware of what the problems are at this point. We know what's going on. I mean, right now we have a group of people that are infiltrating our state, on all levels, and that think, totalitarianism is an okay thing. They want freedoms for themselves, but they don't want freedoms for the rest of the people. So, things are getting a little interesting, to say the least, on this world stage. So nonetheless, let's get started. I have some memes to look at. I mean, we all like memes here. So let's definitely get this going. So right here we have the vicious cycle. All right, we have the vicious cycle. Who is freaking tired of this vicious cycle? I know there's a lot of people that are, it seems like we constantly go round and around and around. I kind of joke, we play the game Insanity every 4 years at this point. You know what insanity is, right? We're doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. And, I think it's time we kind of move past this. And, we kind of understand that we can't keep shoving a square peg into a circle hole because it's all we know. We kind of have to kind of pull up our big boy and our big girl pants, and we have to start organizing ourselves towards a solution at this point. Because as you could see, based on this meme right here, this is what continuously has happened, at least for the 17 years that I've been watching all of this and I have been involved in this. So, this is something I think a lot of us here don't want anymore. And I know there's a lot of great people working towards this not being the case anymore. So this is something we don't want, obviously. And also, too, we have this right here. We have to, in some ways, what I mean by this, by saying perspective is everything. Right. I think in some ways what we have to do is we kind of have to shift our perspective a little bit, because when we look at the gross of the liberty community and, and especially even diving into the rest of the conscious collective, that's something you'll hear me use a lot tonight. We have the liberty community, we have the truthers, we have everybody, we're kind of under the same umbrella. We're all part of this conscious collective. And, and what I'm kind of seeing right now in some ways is, we kind of have almost a little bit of a state of disharmony going on. And the number one thing I want everybody to, listen to tonight and hear these words I have to say, we in this community can no longer let our disagreements take precedence over our commonalities. We can, I'm going to even throw this in there at this point, I can't believe, even though this doesn't really, involve what we're talking about tonight, but I'm going to throw it in there. People are still arguing about if the earth is fucking flat or if it's round. At this point, okay? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we have bigger fish to fry at this point in time, I've seen libertarians and anarchists argue with each other at this point, out people in their own community. You know what I mean? And, what we're looking at is we're looking at brothers and sisters in arms at this point. We have to understand that, we have to maybe refine our approach just a little bit of how we're doing things. Not completely change it, but I'm looking at what I would call a shift in perspective. And I'm going to kind of dive into that, but we don't want people looking at us like we're a floating dumpster fire. Okay, that is the number one thing that I'm going to try to change here tonight, because, at this point in time, a lot of people do look at us in a lot of ways like we're floating dumpster fires. I mean, look at how we're discredited a lot in the media. We're called these degenerates. We're called alt-right. We're called, even though a lot of us here aren't alt-right, like, don't get me wrong, but this is the discreditment that constantly comes from the mainstream media, constantly comes from our federal government and things like that. I don't want the greater collective to look at us this way anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I look at everybody in this room right now, I see very good Americans that have their values aligned with, liberty, freedom, sovereignty. And this is what I think we need to, in a lot of ways, start to showcase, when we're dealing with people and we're dealing, because guys, don't you want more people involved? Don't you want more people understanding the value of freedom? The value of being a sovereign human being and understanding that we're not these violent individuals. In fact, I know a lot of you in here, we're all quite peaceful people. We want that peace. We want that alignment with these values. And I think that's what we need to start bringing to the forefront when we are dealing with people in the public, especially people we're talking to. So, it's and I'll kind of break down what I mean by refinement as we go a little bit further. But I think, how we present ourselves, how we work with other people in the public, how we talk with other people, that's something we just have to take a look at. And it's something, we have to maybe kind of shift our perspective on. Now, the reason why I put this meme up there, and don't get me wrong, let me start off with this. I understand that this world is not rainbows, butterflies, unicorns, and fucking Laffy Taffy. I know there's dark things, there's bad things going on. Don't get me wrong. So that's one thing I kind of want to start off with to show you guys I'm realistic. I'm based in reality. I understand this. All right. But this truly is our greatest power. You know what I mean? Because if all of us, were to find a way to kind of surround ourselves and to focus on this common greater goal that we all share at this point in time, we would become immensely powerful and we would become unstoppable in what we are trying to achieve here. And, I know I'm not saying, we're all going to just drop and just be, lovey-dovey with each other and be friendly with each other. Don't get me wrong. But even in the temporary sense, okay, to fry this bigger fish we're looking at right now, especially what's happening here in Colorado and what's happening here in nationwide, so that's kind of why I put this meme up there is essentially, as cliche or as hippy dippy as it might sound, we have to start working together. We have to find a way to start getting along with each other a little bit better. And we have to find a way to start shifting our gears towards a solution-based mindset. I know there's a lot of people here who are already working in local government, who are already putting a foot forward. Props to you. That's freaking amazing. That's exactly what we need right now. And we need more in our community to even take a little bit of initiative too. And I mean, it doesn't, dude, the one thing I want to relay to everybody, even on a philosophical level at this point, is you as a single person, you have an amazing amount of power, just you singly, to elicit a change in this world, to make a better future, to build a foundation, all right, that's going to allow us to cultivate this better future just for our children and our grandchildren. And it doesn't have to, you don't have to get up here and even talk, just living by example and living by your values and staying in alignment with these values of liberty and freedom. That's all you have to do to put a foot forward. So one of the things I'm going to talk about, we have some solutions in plain sight. We have shifting gears into a solution-based mentality. And I know a lot of you here are already on that mentality. I can see that, just based on how everybody's talking and what everybody's doing with themselves at this point in time. And because a lot of you are actually leaders in this community to an extent, and people listen to you. You have this influence. I think it's time we kind of start to stop focusing strictly on the problems, because I feel like, dude, we can bitch about the problems for an eternity. Like, you look at a lot of other podcasters, you look at, a lot of other people in alternative media at this point in time, and all you consistently hear is the problems, the problems, the problems, the problems. Okay. Like I said at the beginning, we're all fucking aware of what the problems are at this point. We have an understanding of what the issue is. And now we have to take the initiative to put a foot forward, especially in our communities, especially in our families as well, to kind of show this initiative and shift ourselves to a solution-based mindset. So what does that kind of mean? That means we start looking at solutions to the problems instead of just sitting there talking about the problems. And there's many different kinds of solutions we're going to go through. I mean, they're not all hurtling through hoops of fire. They're not all freaking, like putting your neck on the line. There's many different things we can do. And then we have to start adapting to the current issues that we face collectively, especially in this community. And a lot of you are already doing a fantastic job of doing that. And it's a message that we need to carry to the rest of our community as well. It's for instance, getting into local government, understanding. I mean, guys, look at COVID, all right? We know they're going to try something like this again. Okay, it might not be a virus this time. It might be something else. But the bird flu and the egg thing, I'm joking. I'm gonna start an egg trap house and start slinging dozens on the corner at this point, because that you saw the meme. You can buy weed in stores and you're buying eggs on the street at this point. So interesting world we're in regardless of that. But that's exactly adapting to the current issues that we face collectively, instead of just sitting there in the corner complaining, whining about it, freaking screaming into echo chambers, arguing with other people in our community, and then you have taking your own way of action. I know each and every one of you out there has an amazing talent to bring to the table. Yes, you do. You shook your head. I know you got something in you, man. I know you do. And, and we can utilize this, to kind of propel our community and our cause forward even more, because like I said, we want more people with us. We do, you know what I mean? And I know when it comes down to it, I don't care about a lot of things either, but when it comes to this, I care deeply about this. And, I want us to succeed. I don't want to see us keep falling short, and we've made some ground, we've gained some ground, but I think we can work harder and we can get towards this. And I'm going to continue to tell you how I think we can do this as well. And then we have building true community. And this kind of works towards, we got to stop ostracizing each other. You know what I mean? We have to understand that, look, like, you're a libertarian, you're an anarchist, you might be conservative, but do you like freedom? Do you like liberty? Do you like sovereignty? Do you want less government? Okay, we need to start focusing on these commonalities. And this is how we build true community. And we build these connections and we network with each other, just like we're doing tonight. In fact, this would be a great example of that solution. And, and I thank Josh and Kiara for always throwing this on. And then we have bridging the disconnect. right? So right now we can see collectively that there's a huge disconnect between us and everybody else. Kind of brought it up just a little bit in the beginning. Like I said, a lot of people think we're fucking nuts. Like we're these tinfoil hat wearing. I mean, don't get me wrong. I throw on my tinfoil hat here and there just to look at myself in the mirror. It looks good every now and then, but that's what they see us as, these degenerates, these vagabonds, whatever they want to call us. You know what I mean? And that's because there's a disconnect there. And yes, the mainstream media is going to do whatever it's going to do. We get that. But here's the thing, man. When people are living in alignment with their values and they're living and they're leading by example and they are living themselves and presenting themselves in a way that is educated, intelligent, professional, okay, those people are very hard to discredit. Like, can you imagine the mainstream media, all of us just sitting here right now having this talk, and like they'd be looking at us right now and they'd be like, man, like, how can we smear them? How can we smear these people? We can't. They're all sitting here enjoying each other's company, leading by example, living in alignment with their values. They're not out freaking, looting stores. They're not out, vandalizing the streets. They're not doing any of this stuff. How can we discredit these people? You're going to know that they're going to have an insanely hard time discrediting us at that point. And that's what the media loves to do. They love to look at us like we are these bastard children of this country. You know what I mean? They like to look at us like we are these shitty skid marks on the underpants of society people. And we all know that we are not this. We all know. And so that's what I mean by bridging the disconnect. We open this communication with people who might not understand us, who might not, understand our side of the fence, but we have to open that connection and communication. One of the biggest things I know, man, trust me, the left, they annoy the shit out of me. Like, I'm 100%. Like, I had back on my show back a couple weeks ago, I had something called Common Ground. I had somebody from the right and the left sit in the same room and actually manage to have a civil conversation. It was a rarity. Yeah, no, it almost got kind of heated at times. Don't get me wrong, but I had to moderate it. But, the guy from the left was crying because of Trump derangement syndrome. And don't get me wrong. If you're crying because you lost a family member or something bad happened to you, I'm there for you. I'll be there to listen. But when you're crying live on air over Donald Trump, at that point, I have to look at you and I have to be like, dude. And he was a man as well. So, we all, I'm not going to say anything bad about leftist men. I'm not here to smear people, but y'all know what I'm talking about here at the same time, but nonetheless. And that's what I mean, guys. We have to open up that disconnect. We have to start finding a way to communicate with these people who, might be opposed to us, or they might not quite understand what we're about. And we have to be willing to do that. You know what I mean? And this is how we open the door to more people becoming libertarians, or, finding their value and understanding the value and the, I'll even say it, the spiritual nature of freedom itself. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean by bridging the disconnect. And then we have truly focusing on the greater common goal, right? So this right here, we all know what this greater common goal is. This should be the focus of us at this point in time. We talked about disagreements taking precedence over commonalities. We need to throw that out of the window and understand that we all in this room ultimately want the same thing. We all do. You know what I mean? So this is where I mean, this should be the focus, and I know the media, social media, even alt media in ways at this time can divert our focus, can kind of cloud our minds a little bit. I'm not saying don't listen to your favorite podcast. I'm not saying don't do any of that, but understand, where the true focus lies in what we're talking about here. So that's just something I wanted to explain to everybody. I wanted to show to everybody, because this is something. We have a lot of amazing solutions that are here in plain sight. And I know a lot of you guys are already utilizing these, and it's up to us to kind of spread the word with the rest of our community, and get them on board and get them into a little bit more of an understanding of what we're talking about here. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about is the true battlefield that we're currently on. at this point in time. We're on a very interesting one. Some people call it Clown World. Some people call it the world stage. There's a lot of different names for it, but one of the things I kind of want to bring to the awareness of everybody is the real battlefield that we're currently on. While yes, we are going to have aspects of physical warfare, the majority of it is mental, psychological, and emotional warfare. That's what's being kind of utilized at this point towards us from the mainstream media, social media itself. I was having a conversation with Josh, before we even started this. I had a phone call with an ex-DOD employee who's actually a friend of a friend that I went to high school with. He wouldn't come on the show. But we had a phone call, we had a personal phone call, and he validated a lot of this. You know what I mean? There is a lot of, mental, psychological, and emotional warfare that's going on at this point in time. So this is just something I want to bring to everybody's awareness. These are tactics are even used on us in our community. I remember back in the day, like before 2020, when, we were like, man, isn't it going to be weird when like conspiracies are mainstream? Like, isn't that going to be cool? But now we're looking at it that conspiracies have become mainstream. And even though in some ways it's still kind of cool, don't get me wrong, but now we have to understand that what becomes mainstream, now these mainstream people have control of this narrative. And that's why, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you not to listen to your favorite podcast. I'm not telling you to not, watch your favorite YouTube channel or your favorite Rumble channel or anything like that. I understand the truth is everywhere, even little bits of truth, you know what I mean? And we can soak all of that up as much as we want, to gain an understanding and totality of what's going on. But we have to keep this in our awareness because these tactics are even used on us, even in our community. So that's the one thing I want to talk about. And yeah, we have using counterculture narratives against their communities. Guys, of course, anything that's gaining any kind of momentum becomes of interest to intelligence agencies and becomes of interest to other people who want to come in and stop that momentum. A couple of good examples of this, I talk about, Operation Chaos, from the CIA, COINTELPRO from the FBI. There's even Operation Prosperity. So that's what I'm trying to bring to the attention of everybody that, even though we are in the conscious collective, we're in the liberty community, we do a lot of this research, we dig for a lot of this truth and these solutions, we have to understand that even we ourselves are going to be subjected to the psychological, mental, and emotional warfare. And it's even going to come from alternative media at times. So that's just something I want to bring to everybody's attention. And of course, too, you have the infiltration of alternative media and online communities as well. You have these people that come in that always just seem to disengage, dissolve, and dilute everything that's going on. It seems like clockwork. And that's something also as leaders in this community that we have to keep an eye out for. You know what I mean? There's going to be people trying to derail us. There's going to be people who want us to not succeed. So that's kind of why we need to keep that in mind, just as we're going about our day-to-day lives or day-to-day operations, scrolling on social media. And, we have using intensely emotional scenarios to manipulate and divide the population. Guys, I kind of even have the joke that our collective at this point in time is in not you guys, but the consensual collective is in a giant glass cage of emotion at this point in time because everything's about emotion, the here and now. It's the same thing with the gun control going on right now. These individuals are all in the emotional here and now. Even if we're going by the consensual narrative, they are not aware of the repercussions of their actions and their decisions 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line. That's what we need to be looking at. You know what I mean? Especially, when this has become so overshadowed with the propaganda. It seems like we can't get a leg up. It seems like everything's being sleight of hand at us. Everything's a sleight of hand. Especially, I know 2 people here that went to the Capitol hearings and stuff like that. I couldn't believe, some of the stuff that I was hearing, and I can't believe that a lot of people are buying it. It makes you think, are a lot of people really buying it or is there something else going on? That's something I'll let you guys decide. And then we have the manipulation of information, censorship, shadow banning, the scrubbing of the internet. It is happening as far as the internet goes. That this is the time, guys, save all of your important shit on external drives. I'm being dead serious. I had somebody ask me for a article that I talked about in my show on season 1. This was about a year after the fact. I went back to go get that article for him. It had been scrubbed off the net completely. Completely gone. So this is another subtle psychological attack they're using on us right now because we have our focus diverted elsewhere. They're coming behind and they're being like, oh yeah, all of those papers that, you thought gave kind of some credence to you. Oh, look, they're gone now. Poof, they're gone. And of course we have things like archives.org, and sites that are trying to kind of pick up the pace with this. But, and then we have, the shadow banning. I mean, I was even just talking with Josh, before about how his YouTube channel gets hit. I've gotten hit on my YouTube channel. And what they're essentially trying to do to all of us right now is they're trying to funnel us into whistleblowing ghettos. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to funnel us all off into these different corners. So the number one thing I'm going to talk about too is we all have to support each other in that aspect. We all have to share each other's stuff. We all have to, make each other's stuff known, kind of help each other out in this situation. And, of course, we have the manipulation of information. That's been going on for quite some time. Censorship of information. It seems like free speech is dying everywhere at this point. So this is something that we kind of have to understand that's super important to us. Is super important to us. You know what I mean? So this is just the true battlefield we're on, at least in my eyes. We're looking at a lot of different hits from a lot of different angles. You know what I mean? And this is just something we have to hold in our awareness. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of why I want to talk about that. So the next slide is just more of a photo. So I'm going to kind of dive in to what I mean about the refinement aspect of us just a little bit. And, trust me, take this with a grain of salt. It's totally up to you if you want to listen to me here or not and what I have to say. But, coming from, I do a podcast. I've had a lot of different people on my show from all different walks of life. I told you, I just had a leftist on the show. It was the only leftist that agreed to come and sit down, which and at least in that aspect, I have that respect for him that he actually showed up and he actually did it. But so what I mean by refining ourselves, guys, so the way we present ourselves to the public. I know a lot of you guys, actually do take care in that here. I see that. But guys, we have to, when we go to these front lines and we go to these events, and, we talk with these people, we have to showcase ourselves as educated, intellectual, and intelligent people, right? That has to take the forefront. Don't get me wrong. We're all hanging out with each other like tonight. We're all hanging out with our community. Yeah, let loose, dude. Have fun, curse, whatever the fuck you want to do. Like, you know what I mean? Like that, especially when we're around each other, it's almost like a family, guys. We can let loose. We can be around our people, our community. But when we're out talking with the public, okay, and we're showcasing ourselves, whether you're running for local office, whether you're a content creator, whether you're a podcaster, whether you're doing anything like that, the way we present ourselves. Have you ever heard the term you eat with your eyes before you actually eat the food? Have you ever had a plate brought out to you and you just look at it and you're like, holy shit, what's that? Like, you're like, and it's delicious. I promise. Just give it a bite. And you're just looking at it and you're like, dude, this doesn't look delicious. But that's kind of what I'm adding at here. You know what I mean? And I know not everybody in the Liberty community is this way. I know some other podcasters who kind of are, you know what I mean, in that sense as well. But the way we present ourselves to the public, I think we have to have a little bit of a shift in perspective with that. We have to start appearing, like I said, you can't discredit, you can't demean somebody who's educated, intelligent, who presents themselves well, who speaks well. You can't discredit those people. Like, the media is going to have a hard time doing that, and even local media, is going to have a hard time discrediting people if you have that presentation on point. So that's just kind of where I'm coming from on this, I'm not saying don't rock a beard. I'm not saying don't do any of that. But let's say, if we're going to, let's say Colorado Doge takes off, right? And the audits start happening, right? We need to be walking in there fresh to death, dude. You know what I mean? We need to be walking in there like we are on our A+++ game. All right. Because these individuals, they are looking for any chance, any minute slip up, any kind of little thing that they can amplify and magnify on us to discredit what we're trying to do. And so that's kind of what I mean by refining ourselves just a little bit. You know what I mean? And of course, yes, I'm not saying this is going to be an overnight thing. I'm not saying that, like tomorrow, we're all going to get up and this is just going to be like this. But it's making that effort. You know what I mean? It's making that putting that foot forward in order to make that change. The other thing too, I want to bring up as well, you guys might disagree with this quote a little bit, but I'm going to kind of give you like two versions of it. So I honestly feel that the path to truth, freedom, and liberty should walk hand in hand with a spiritual one. But I know that's not everybody's cup of tea. So the path of the good person at minimum. And the reason why I say that is because when we act and we put the path of the good person on a pedestal, as opposed to the egotism, the narcissism, the psychopathy, the sociopathy that's being put on a pedestal in our society today. I mean, you guys see it all around us at this point, man. Like, yeah, I mean, you look at all of these people who are, in this limelight, let's say, man, they all have this syndrome. It's all this case of egotism, narcissism, sociopathy, all of that. So that's one thing too, guys, like, at least to try to hold the path of the good person in your awareness too, when it comes to all of this as well, because, when we do that, we kind of alter our own perspective and we kind of also attract more people to us. So that's kind of what I mean by refining ourselves. And like I said, I know it's not going to be an overnight thing, but, it's the effort that counts. And, if a lot of us start appearing on that A++++ game, when we go to these events and we talk with these people are going to be like, wow, look at what they're doing. Like, look at this person. Like, like they're happy. They're in alignment with their values. They're living what they say. They're practicing what they preach. The media paints people like this as complete degenerates. But the person I just talked to is not a degenerate. This dude's just like me. He works a 9 to 5. That's why I'm an electrician by day, podcaster by night. I work a 9 to 5, during the day. I got my job and then I come and I do what I do. You know what I mean? Because I try to live this. I'm not just trying to sit here and paint this pretty picture for everybody. I myself am not perfect, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, that's the point I'm trying to get across. And that's why I ultimately ended up putting this in here. We try to always strive to change others. And of course, that's something that we're attempting to do. Like, we want to help shift people's perspectives into looking at our way and being like, wow, why was I okay with totalitarianism before? Like, why was I okay with all of this before? Like, look at this. Like, I have the ability to be free. I have the ability to be a sovereign individual. I don't want the government all up in my shit. Like, you know what I mean? Because when that happens, like, you see the bad results of everything that goes down. So, like, we don't want a nanny state, everybody. So nonetheless, guys, this is exactly what I'm, trying to bring to the table at this point. Like, I love this community very much. Okay. Like, I've been a part of it for so long. I want to see us succeed. I want us to actually make something of this. I guarantee you by 2028, we're going to see a lot more people looking at us at this point because, I stay objective about a lot of things, you know what I mean? And like, I catch a lot of flack for it, don't get me wrong. But I stay objective because someone has to. You know what I mean? Somebody has to look at this situation going on from a third-party point of view. Now, don't get me wrong. What's happening now is way better than what could be happening. You know what I mean? I'm going to throw that out there 100%, be completely honest about that. However, I still have to look at it and be like, okay, like, is this too good to be true at this point in time? Or, is this something that's actually happening, which I'm completely 100% open to. You know what I mean? So then that's the one thing, like, no, just because I'm objective doesn't mean I support the left. Doesn't mean I support Kamala. And that does not mean that I'm not open to what's happening right now being an amazing thing. So that's just something I want to throw out there too. So as far as solutions go, I know a lot of you are already involved in local government. I know a lot of you are already out doing things as well. So that's something I would actually commend. And maybe I would say a lot more people need to actually kind of start putting their foot forward and getting involved. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything massive. I know a lot of us are, have families, have busy lives. I have a freaking busy life. Like, I get it, but just living in alignment with the values is the number one thing that you can do to help kind of put your foot forward. And, and I know that sometimes it takes work. We have shitty days. Like, everybody has crappy days. So, but that's would be the number one solution. 2, the content that you intake. All right. Like, I know that don't get me wrong, there's a lot of great alternative media, but there's also a lot of shit alternative media out there as well. So fill your mind, all right, with a lot of the good stuff, the stuff that's going to be solution-based, the stuff that gets your brain thinking. You know what I mean? That gets your idea, the hamster in your head running on that wheel just a little bit faster than it was before. So be kind of, cautious of the content you would take. There's a lot of fear mongering out there. There's a lot of people who are just trying to sell you shit. There used to be a guy I used to listen to. I'm not going to name his name, but he runs the YouTube channel AMTV. And you know exactly who I'm talking about. Back in the day, he was great. Don't get me wrong. He actually did alternative media and journalism. But now it's like, hey, I need you to send me this much money so you can buy into my private island. So when shit hits the fan, you're welcome here at my private island and you're going to be just fine. Okay, so this is what I mean, guys. Like, kind of be cautious of the content you would take because that does influence you on a subconscious level. You know what I mean? And also too, as far as running for local government, I know a lot of people in here are part of the LP. I do kind of want to bring up another potential solution that we could use, especially if anybody wants to run for, local office. Now, I'm not married to this. Let me just say that first and foremost. All right. But part of my job is I have to look at everything. I have to look at different solutions. So I have been doing some work with the American Capitalist Party. I did have Mark Pellegrino on my show back a few months back. If you guys don't know him, he played Lucifer in the TV Supernatural. He was on Lost. Probably the biggest guest I've ever had on my show. I was definitely trying not to shit myself the entire time, but it came out well. But I've been working with him, my two good friends who are his direct underlings, secretary and his chief advisor. I've known for 10 plus years, actually, no, going on like 15 years at this point. They're two good friends of mine. They're working with him as well, trying to help curb the Zionism in him just a tad. But like, other than that, I've told him even myself, I'm like, dude, you got to focus on America first right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't get me wrong. Like, we can talk about this later, but like right now we need to focus on what's going on here. But nonetheless, this is another possible solution we could look at. You know what I mean? And what is the American Capitalist Party? Well, so the American Capitalist Party mission statement, protecting the freedom of man's mind, assuring the prospering of human life. Our philosophy of life permeates our political principles. We stand for reason, for individual rights, for limited constitutional government, and for laissez-faire capitalism. If you guys are unfamiliar with laissez-faire capitalism, I'll get into it just a little bit. And the only political party consistently dedicated to the flourishing of human life on Earth. I know that not to be the case. That's just their mission statement. So this is another possible solution we can be looking at here. Because like we talked about in the beginning, guys, we see the vicious cycle. We're done with the vicious cycle. It's at a point where I think, a lot of us are kind of pulling our hair out over this vicious cycle at this point. So nonetheless, another possible solution here. So if you guys have not heard, laissez-faire capitalism is a type of economic system in which transactions between private groups of people are free from any economic interventionism, such as subsidies or regulations. As a system of thought, laissez-faire rests on the following axioms. The individual is the basic unit in society, i.e. the standard of measurement in social calculus. The individual has a natural right to freedom, and the physical order of nature is a harmonious and self-regulating system. So this is something I feel like, we need to get back to, because a lot of people in here, one of the biggest things, at least in my opinion, we're losing real capitalism here in the United States. At this point, we have something called crony capitalism. And if you guys look at the definition of real capitalism and you look at the definition of crony capitalism and compare them side by side and ask yourself, which one does America have right now? You're going to see America has crony capitalism. So, that's the one thing I like to dispel with a lot of people, that we are on the downfall of being a capitalist country. And it's unfortunate, because I love capitalism myself. I think it's a great thing, so that's where I'm getting at, guys. This is just another option we can take a look at. Okay. I'm not saying I'm married to it personally. In my heart, I am an anarchist, but I do understand that, that people in our society are not morally, ethically, psychologically, or emotionally ready to handle something like that. So we do have to look. Oh yeah. You guys know the shopping cart allegory. If somebody can return the shopping cart to the cart stall without any, someone telling them to do that, they can live in that kind of society. But if they don't, they're not people who are capable of self-government. You know how many times I pull into King Soopers and see shopping carts all over the goddamn parking lot? All right, so that's basically what I'm getting at. I understand that. But nonetheless, guys, this is just kind of what I wanted to relay tonight. And the last thing I'm going to show everybody is this. Stop believing in authority and start believing in each other. All right, guys. Honestly, we're all, like I said, brothers and sisters in arms in this. Okay. Whether, we might see things just a little bit differently. We might have a slight ideological difference, slight difference in philosophy. You might be a Christian. He might be an atheist. He might be Buddhist. I mean, you know what I mean? But guys, in the grand scheme of things at this point in time, does any of that fucking matter? No. Okay. What matters is we work together. We start to build this foundation for our future. Okay. And I know there's a lot of people out here already doing that, and props to all of you guys as well for putting that foot forward and doing that. My only recommendation is, guys, like I said, I know a lot of you out here are leaders in this community. A lot of people listen to you. Let's kind of start spreading this just a little bit. Let's kind of start working with each other, understanding like, dude, we can argue about whether or not the earth is flat after we're done, dealing with this current situation. Okay. Like, we don't need to be all up in arms with each other over this. But guys, nonetheless, I want to appreciate you for letting me say what I had to say tonight. Other than that, guys, if you want to find me, come talk to me after the show. If you're interested on coming on the show, I would love that as well. I would love to have more guests. And other than that, thank you, Josh and Kiara. This was great. And you guys have a great night. Thanks so much.
You want to do some questions?
What?
You want to do any questions?
Oh, yeah, questions. Questions for anybody.
Let's see, I'll do the first one. Fellow degenerate here, thank you for giving the talk. I'm just curious, what do you think is the best path towards achieving more freedom? So you mentioned the Capitalist Party. Do you think voting and political activism, or something more like agorism and crypto anarchy?
So one of the biggest things I feel like is going to kind of, help with freedom at this point in time is, number one, I mean, obviously, yes, but we vote in many different ways too. Like, we vote with our dollar. We vote with, the content that we intake. Okay. I really think when it comes down to that, we start making the smart choices and we start making smart decisions when it comes to that. I think, honestly, the path to freedom at this point, which is going to push us a little further, is if we all start, in a lot of ways, working together and pushing ourselves forward. You know what I mean? Yes, voting is going to help. Participating in local government's going to help. I do feel that, of course, all of that's going to help. But guys, the number one thing we have to do is, kind of stand together as a community at this point and push each other forward in a more positive and solution-based mindset. Because if we start living and leading by example, I'll just kind of even dive into this shortly. I'm a big believer, and I know probably some of you are out there, that, our mental faculties kind of interact with the world around us. All right. Our consciousness, whatever you may call it, even in the most, I guess you could say, bare basic terms. Okay. It contributes to how we live, what happens, what we experience in our world. So, shifting our perspectives, just simply doing that, is enough to make a lot of things happen. It might seem very small at first, like just changing my sight on something or changing the way I see something. But what that does is it causes a lot of effects. I think really the ultimate path to freedom at this point is, like I said, even on the slide, is bridging that disconnect in communication between us and others and having more people actually get involved with our values and understanding us from that standpoint. Do I think there's any hard path? No. I mean, this is really, in my eyes, completely and totally up to us and how we take it forward. But I mean, that's just my thoughts. I know a lot of people could have a differing opinion on that, but that's just my take on it.
You had talked earlier about maybe some alternative media platforms or that maybe have been co-opted or infiltrated or any of that. Any tips to detect like infiltrators or bad actors that are coming into our communities? Any suggestions on how we can keep an eye out, things to watch for? I really like what you said about them detracting and trying to distract from some of these major issues. And then do you have any hot takes on maybe some big names out there that you think have been co-opted or are less than trustworthy?
Well, one of the things I'll say is this, guys. So let's take a look at alternative media pre-2020, right? We weren't looking at really any bipartisan swaying back then in alternative media. But if you've noticed, after 2020, a lot of these big names in alternative media started to really shift their gears. You know, I know Alex Jones is beloved by a lot of people in this community. I mean, guys, I remember old school Alex Jones back in the early, when he was still thin and he had a head full of hair. He was out running on the streets, chasing after politicians, like the old InfoWars. I remember those days. So, I mean, he's not just one. I mean, even people like, I know a lot of people like Nino Rodriguez. I know there's a lot of people, but guys, like, you know, when we look at alternative media as a scope, pre-2020, and we look at it after, anybody who shifted their gears to favor any side of the bipartisan system is somebody I would be cautious about. I am not going to lie. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I know that, you know, like I said, there's bits of truth in it. I'm not telling you not to listen to it. I'm never going to tell you to not listen to something. I mean, we can find great information, even sometimes from the strangest sources. You know what I mean? And I'll be 100% of that. But look, what I would really say is there's a few people I can think of off the top of my head. Like Chris Green from AMT TV Media. A lot of people have changed their tune, you know, ever since 2020. There's a whole theoretical thing. Apparently, General Flynn met with a whole bunch of really big alternative media people in 2019 before this all dropped. And, you know, you look at 2020 and what happened to alternative media, and we see this shift. So anybody who has all of a sudden shaken themselves and jumped back into the two-party system, I would be very cautious about.
Hi, first-time caller, long-time listener. Hi. So I really appreciate what you had to say as far as trying to find your people and build community and value that. And I think, I mean, even if it goes down to like, I do this kind of carpentry or I do that kind of electric, like we're like talking about parallel economy type stuff. And I think that that's a very big goal in our media ingestment and our whole way of living. I was fighting these bills in the Colorado legislature, but these people do not listen. They just don't listen. So what I try to do is I try to find like a Socratic argument and try to understand with them, like what would be like, how do we address this in a Socratic method with like these people fail to listen on our reason and liberty and sovereignty. Like, where is this common ground?
You're absolutely right. It does almost in a lot of ways, like it seems almost like a rigged game. Kind of, it almost seems like there's a very massive sleight of hand going on. There's a lot of those going on nowadays. It seems to be. I mean, the parallel economy thing, I think is a great idea. You know, I do think, I mean, we have people here, that throw events and especially Liberty on the Rocks, but others like We Are Change Colorado and things like that. So I think really this is kind of even dives into the adapt to the current conditions that we're currently dealing with, there is going to come to a point, it's looking like, especially with everything going on, where we're going to have to do that. You know what I mean? And of course, when it comes to the gun bill, I'm going to say peaceful noncompliance all fucking day. And that's what needs to happen but when it comes to even starting, like you would say, a parallel economy, yes, start networking with each other. I know a lot of people who, have chickens, who have things like that. We can work with food, things like that. This is what I mean. We have to adapt because we're going to be faced with more things like COVID. We're going to be faced with more things like what's going on right now in Colorado. We're going to be faced with that. I mean, even the bill, what is it? They're trying to let rapists walk free at this point or something, and sex offenders. Doesn't that sound like a fucking recipe for disaster? My God, dude. But I've always joked we need to bring back the lion pit for those people. But that's just my opinion there. But no, I think that's great. I think that's what we need to start doing. That falls into the adapting. You know what I mean? There are going to be things that hit us that, are going to come out of left field, and it's up to us. Yes, of course, we're going to be like, holy shit, when it happens. Don't get me wrong. But we can be like, holy shit, but then it's like, okay, what do we need now? What do we need to do now? Because a lot of people still just sit and complain. I see a lot of, a lack of action and a lot of people, sometimes even in our community, it sucks. I hate to see that, but when we start adapting to the issues and we start formulating our own solutions together, especially ones that are common sense based, that we can work with each other on a common sense scale with, I think that's a really good thing that we need to start doing for sure.
Hi, I had a question. You mentioned you save things off the internet.
Yeah.
Do you do anything to make sure that people know they're legitimate? Like if you clip an article that disappears off the website, how do you make it so that people know that that actually was on the website as opposed to something you typed up?
So the best thing I would try to do is if you can somehow, because I know a lot of laptops can take screenshots now.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at a document, screenshot it with the web address if that's possible. And I know sometimes that a lot of these documents will have web addresses on them as well, or they'll have the website that they originate from. So that's the number one thing I would try to do, is to make sure you cover all your bases, at least from a credibility standpoint, when you're saving this information. Because yes, you can have some random piece of paper from anywhere that says anything, and that's one of the biggest things. And especially right now, our media has been bombarded with so much false truth, that it's becoming even harder to find the real truths. What'd you say? Carrots, exactly. Yep, dangling carrots, exactly. So, but that's what I would do, man. Get screenshots, even get a screenshot of the website, like if it's a PDF file or something, screenshot that website where it has the location to the PDF web file or whatever kind of article that you have, and kind of lump that in the same folder as you would with the rest of that stuff. So they can see that correlation. They can see that, hey, this came from here, so this is a credible source of information. That's what I would personally do. That's what I've personally done as well.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so you mentioned the American Capitalist Party. So I know you have some personal ties to them, but why would you go with them over, say, the Libertarian Party, which is much bigger, more well-established, been around longer, might have more money? So I'm just curious, what are the pros and cons of the American Capitalist Party over the Libertarian Party, and why would you recommend that one?
Well, like I said, I'm not really married to anything at this point in time. I'm like I said, I'm an anarchist at heart. I am. I'm not going to lie about that. As far as advantage goes, I'm going to be 100% honest. I, in a lot of ways, feel like they're equivalent in pros and cons. You know what I mean? The way I look at it is just another solution that we could potentially be looking at. I'm not here to turn anybody on to the ACP, or I'm not here yelling up here, I'm diehard ACP. I ended up working with them out of sheer coincidence. It just kind of fell into my lap. My two friends who were directly working under him were like, you need to have this guy on your show. I was like, okay, cool. And then with that, kind of just, it spurred me into it. I mean, do I think it's a better solution than the LP? Absolutely not. I think in a lot of ways that there's an equivalence of pros and cons that we need to weigh with everything. Like I said, I'm not married to it. I'll even tie back to what I said about being objective. You know what I mean? I try to stay objective about as much as I possibly can. When I'm looking at these topics, I try not to get myself tied in, because at least for me and my perspective, I feel like it allows me to look at things in a broader scope. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with the ACP. I don't think it's better than the Libertarian Party. It's just another potential option we can be looking at for a solution to what's happening today. It doesn't have to be something that we ultimately go with.
Hey, thank you for the talk. I just wanted to mention when you were talking about the true battlefield, and I was just curious because I kept seeing money and finance, but I wasn't hearing that from you. And then it was ironic. Then you go into the capitalism and the laissez-faire capitalism, and so I think I would add finance to that true battlefield. I just think that's a very large factor. That drives so much of that lobby work and everything else,
100% agree. I would 100% agree. That's definitely something that's going to be added in. I apologize I did not touch on that, but yes, no, that is definitely. Yeah. No, I should have put it in the true battlefield. No, I totally understand what you're saying. No, it is. It is a very huge part of what's going on. So that's something, obviously it's my first time doing this here on the talk. So, I definitely, there's some things I honestly say I can do better next time, 100%. But no, I'm with you. That's a huge part of the battlefield, 100%. And it's something that we see quite a bit of, and I mean we're seeing it go on right now. I mean even back in COVID, dude, what was it? The pharmaceutical industry lobbied a whopping $180 more million into Congress in 2020 than they did for the past 10 years before that.
If I could say one quick thing, that's one of my biggest issues with crony capitalism is pharmaceutical. They always preach about research and development, and we need a free market, and that's why our drugs are so good because of the free market. Of course, that's all great to have a free market, but the pharmaceutical industry. They have this system called the patent system, which is a regulation from the U.S. government saying there will be zero competition. This one corporation will have all rights to everything. And so Pfizer goes out and makes $100 billion, $200 billion in profit. And this is even after the U.S. government gave them, regardless of how you feel about the vaccine or not, gave them $2 billion to develop the vaccine in the first place. Then the U.S. government gives them a patent for 7 years or 10 years or 14 years. And a patent is the exact opposite of a free market. And the pharma corps are always saying, oh, it's the free market that makes everything so great here in America. It's like, okay, well, we'll do away with your patents and we'll see what you preach about free market after that.
I'm 100% with you, man. And like I said, it's of course, there's always going to be people who abuse things. There's always going to be entities that abuse things and not do the right things. The one thing I will say is, based on what I'm seeing from both the LP and the ACP, is that there's looking like, they're trying to put a stop to things like that. They're trying to bring back, at least from the ACP standpoint, they're trying to bring back what I would kind of call true homegrown capitalism. And but no, I'm 100% with you, man. I agree. That is definitely part of the battlefield.
So the JFK files just got released. Do you think that they are just a distraction from the Epstein files? And do you think they will use the MLK files, the RFK files, any other files to just stall till we get the Epstein files in I don't know, maybe 50 years or something?
Corey brought it up. I call this thing the dangling carrot. You know what I mean? And this is something that's done to us quite a bit, especially by mainstream politicians. Don't get me wrong. Yes, Trump did what he said. He released the JFK papers. All 80,000 documents that, luckily we have things like Grok we can run them through so we don't take the 2 years to go through every single piece of paper. I mean, are a lot of this distractions? I mean, in my opinion, very well could potentially be. And the reason why I say that is a lot of us in here already kind of know what the JFK files have to say. A lot of us in here already kind of know what the Epstein files are going to have to say. We know that the Epstein files are going to heavily implicate a lot of people in Israel. That's probably why they're dragging their feet when it comes to releasing those. But we don't need the federal government for validation when it comes to a lot of this stuff. We already know it's happening. So in my eyes, it is. It's a little bit of a dangling carrot. Am I not saying good things won't come out of it? Am I not saying it's helping kind of expand the awareness of people who maybe were not on this before and they were oh, this is actually a thing now. There's JFK papers, there's an Epstein file. I mean, Charlie was talking about it. I saw on a show with my friend Ryder for his 10,000 subscriber. Yes, it's a dangling carrot, but it is a good thing in some ways that now this is being brought to the awareness of the general public that this stuff is going on. I mean, yes, I do think, for people like us, it's a little bit of a distraction. I think there's we know that about, based on human nature, human psychology, and the psychology of governments. Just with those three things alone, we can see that probably 75 to 80% of the conspiracies are most certainly true. Because those three things can't be discounted. They can't be debunked. They can't be debated. They are what they are. And when you look at human nature, human psychology, and the psychology of governments, it is what it is. You know what I mean? So that's basically where I'm coming from on that. I do think that it is a little bit of a dangling carrot. Yes.
last question.
Well, okay, very good. Would you restate your podcast for me, please, and do it so you can look directly into the film and I can have evidence?
For sure, man. So I am the podcast BGcast. I cover, I call it the Great Awakening because we're all going through this awakening right now. Whether it's an awakening to, the atrocities in our government, whether it's awakening to other aspects of this world that we experience, I cover it all and we cover everything that it entails. You can find me on Rumble and YouTube, BGcast. So it's just BGcast, no space. You can find me on Facebook under that too. Instagram, it's at BG2_ then cast. And then on X, where I'm mostly active. And I do stream to X too as part of my platform. It's at BG3_ then cast. I don't know. There's another BGcast out there. He took all the names, so I had to get creative. But
fantastic. One of the things that I always tell my young men who are always coming around the shop and not hiding their high with me is that people that tend to think that people think, and they get surprised, right? And when they get surprised that other people aren't thinking and they run into a set of thinking people, they forget that people don't think just like them. And so then all kinds of conflicts arise, and you can imagine having a bunch of 20-year-olds at the store high on whatever, and then, just enjoying life altogether. One of the things I wanted to talk about was you said something about raise your standards, bring your best when you're coming to these, when you're coming to the table, talking to new people, make sure that they're looking at the shining star. Sometimes I think that goes best with you just raise your intellect, right? Because many times I just dress just like this, but I'm a fuck around and find out guy, right? So you end up asking me a question, and it's like that Budweiser commercial where that guy just keeps on saying how his day went after the guy asked him how his day went. I'm that guy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And so many times you can run into someone and figure out who they are by what they say. How did have that work for you on your podcast? Have you been able to figure out people and by what they say and catch them in a couple of things? And if so, then tell me which one was the best.
There's been a few people on my podcast who have came on for various different topics. And the one thing I'll say is this, and I'll be 100% honest, I never call myself an expert in any really particular field. I'm just well-versed in a lot of different ones. I understand a lot of different things. What you said, yes. That presentation, what you talk about, that applies into that presentation. You know what I mean? It doesn't even have to be all about dress. It doesn't even have to be anything like that. The fact that you raise your intellect and you have the knowledge about what you speak about and the message that you relay, that in itself is presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and say that, dude, props to you. Like, dude, I'm in a beanie and a t-shirt like half the time. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Like, I'm not saying that I'm a perfect person and I'm out there walking around in a freaking expensive tux, like, every single day. But, you brought up a good point. That is part of the presentation. The fact that you have that intellect, the fact that you have that understanding. I've had people come on and claim they know about things. And you can hear usually within the first 5 minutes. There's been quite a few. I'll just use the Common Ground episode where I had the right and the left sit down because that's one of the most recent ones that happened in. But, this guy on the left, claimed to have a lot of knowledge about, foreign policy, claimed to have a lot of knowledge about, our economy and how our financial system works, things like that. And I mean, really within the first 5 to 10 minutes of listening to him, you could obviously tell he didn't. And it was all just this leftist brainwashed propaganda that he was just regurgitating. So the Dunning-Kruger effect is a real thing. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. And for those of you who don't know what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, it is when people think they know more about something than they actually do, or they don't know how to say, I don't know, things like that. I'll be the first to tell you, I don't know. Yeah, there's certain things I have no effing clue. Even though I've been, in this community and I've been on this path for 17 years, let me tell you what, I still don't have it all goddamn figured out. And if anybody tells you they got it all figured out, they're lying to you. I'm just going to be 100% on that because, and that's basically what I would say, man, is like, yes, I've seen it. You can see it when, you're talking with certain people and what they're saying, and especially if you're well-versed on that topic and, you've done a lot of research on it yourself and they just come back at you with the propaganda or, just something regurgitated from what they saw on TV. That's a really telling sign.
That's our talk. Give it up for Steven.